Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Cindy from the Positively Altered podcast. I am a chiropractic internist and nutritionist. And on the podcast, we talk about everything health related with absolutely no filter and sometimes a couple different unique spins. Today is absolutely no exception. A lot of times when we think about health, we think about our physical well-being. Today, we're going to discuss money and how important making the right decisions and taking the right path in the financial realm can really contribute to financial health. And I'm super excited to go down this path because I think we don't have the conversation enough. We don't talk about it freely. And we also don't admit and recognize some of the pitfalls that we get ourselves into that if we would just climb out, we could be so much more successful and satisfied. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick commercial break, listen to a couple sponsors that are important to me, and then we're going to be right back with today's guest.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. I am your host, Dr. Cindy. And today's guest, I'm super excited to introduce to you because we're going to take a little shift on the health and wellness twist and bring in money, because I do think that there is such a thing as financial health. So welcome to the podcast, Garrett Gunderson.
It's just like there's so much misinformation and myths around health. It's like the same thing with wealth, you know? There's so many.
Oh, we're going to dive in.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to dive into a lot of the misinformation. And I know I'm going to learn a lot. The listeners are going to learn a lot. But first, let's back up a little bit, because you've got a very interesting health journey yourself that maybe started some of this, correct?
Well, what a lot of people probably don't know is I was in stage 4 kidney failure in 2023. So my grandfather had polycystic kidney disease. My mom, my 2 aunts, my mom and my aunt and my grandfather had kidney transplants. And I guess I know that stress has an impact on things, but I just had forgotten it when I was in the midst of all this stress. You know, I had sold my business and I'm like in a licensing deal that's not going the way I want it to. I'm in a partnership that I was like, you know, not happy with. And it just really created a massive amount of stress. And I remember I was getting my blood pressure. I was getting some IVs with a couple other speakers at this event. And they're saying, oh, there's something wrong with the machine. It says your blood pressure is 192. I was like, they're like, it was fine for us. And I was like, I don't feel great. It's probably really high blood pressure and I probably need to get some blood work done and check things out. And it's crazy to go from there to, a couple years later being extraordinarily healthy. And I didn't, all I really did was biofeedback and change my food and change my practice of how to let go of stress, which was through writing primarily.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now you've written 10 books.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I've written 10 books. One of them's a kid's book that my co-author's she knows how to speak kids. So that was the fastest book ever written, because I tried to write a kid's book on my own and it was terrible. I was going through things. I was like, no kid's going to want to read this. And then Julia Cook came on board, and man, that book's awesome now. I actually got teary-eyed the first time I read it. She did such a fantastic job. But yeah, just had a book come out, Money Unmasked. I've got another manuscript done using humor to teach finance, which I think would be good to have people kind of, laugh about it, since most people don't.
So, when I think about discussing money, I put it right up there with politics and religion. It's tough to have that conversation with people about, right? Because it's difficult, I think, for a lot to understand the concept of money, and it's a scary concept for a lot of us.
There's a lot of guilt and shame. There's a lot of baggage that comes emotionally from family, friends. There's a lot of embarrassment. People feel like they should be further along, or they should have more, or they make mistakes and then they judge themselves for a long time based upon those mistakes. And so yeah, it's one of these things. I think that we all kind of have money stories, but there's 3 layers to it. There's the layer that we share, and that's mostly BS. It's we don't think it's BS, but it's really for protection of ourselves, right? People will tell me all the time, I don't really need a nice car or a nice home. And I'm like, that's what people say when they feel like they should be able to afford those things and can't, because why would you tell someone if you didn't care? You're only telling it as a protection measure. But then there's the stories we tell ourselves. That's the next layer, the stuff we never speak out loud, but we think about ourselves. And that what really hurts us and sabotages our success. And then there's the blind spots. There's the sludge in the basement that people they can't share because they don't even see it. They don't even know it. It's so subconscious but it governs so many of their actions and so many of their feelings. And people kind of get stuck in this scarcity mindset. There's not enough. I got to take what I can while I can. All this kind of story. And I mean, money just has this crazy reputation. Think about it as dirty, filthy, stinking, and I get I made a post about the difference between millionaires and billionaires, and people were just billionaires shouldn't exist. They're assholes. Dude, there's so much energy behind it. And I was whoa, what is this? Where does this all come from? Why is it vilified?
It's so interesting. The profession I practice in, chiropractic, and I love my profession and I love my peeps, but we come from such a poor man's mentality in the chiropractic profession, right? It's dirty to make money and we shouldn't charge people, and we're empaths, so we should give it away, and right. And then there's no value. And it's very interesting. And I take, of course, my profession. I'm sure there's many where the story around what we create is so inappropriate and inaccurate a lot of times.
And I've seen worse. I've seen I spoke at this homeopathic convention, and I just went straight into these belief systems around money and didn't even get out into anything totally practical, because I could feel the scarcity in the room. And people get into being a chiropractor because they want to help, they want to heal. It's not I'm going to get really rich, I'm going to become a chiropractor. It's this emotion and feeling of I really want to help people, but it's hard to help people if you're not financially fit.
Agreed.
It's hard to help people if you don't have an abundance of money that can help you hire, the right people to support your patients. It's hard. It's but somehow there's some block that's there for people.
Now, the scarcity mindset is really interesting to me. Where do you think a lot of that comes from, of the I should be somewhere else at this age, or with a family, or at this aspect of my business? Where does that stem from?
When I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, I addressed scarcity heavily in the book, but I didn't really ever talk about where it came from. So I wrote a sequel called Disrupting Sacred Cows, where it was really about the belief systems and where scarcity comes from. And it comes from our childhood. And look, through epigenetics, we could even trace it back to ancestral belief systems that get handed down at a cellular level. But there's also this notion of something happens when we're a kid. Maybe our parents go through a financial struggle, and then we go, oh yeah, there's something bad about money, but our brains aren't even formed. So we paradoxically hide that from ourselves, but feel that emotion. And so anything that's at all like that in the future, where we feel unsafe, we feel alone, we feel like we can't handle something, then a lot of times money becomes part of the blame. I mean, you see people say that money is the number one reason why people get divorced, although video games seem to be up there these days now. That's a wild thing. But it's because when we stop dreaming about the future and we get stuck in the mistakes of the past, then we become victims and we have to vilify something. And money is an easy villain because it's not a person, it's a thing. And so like, yeah, you know, if I wasn't such a good person, I'd have more money, but I always do the right thing. There's like that belief system that I've heard people say it. I bought a Bentley once, and I remember my brother-in-law was like, you know, do you feel ashamed for driving a Bentley because you could have given that money to charity? I'm like, who's to say that I still couldn't give money to charity? Why do you believe it's an either or? That there's only a finite amount of things? Like, there isn't a finite amount of money. They're printing it all the time. But even if there was, there's an infinite number of times it can exchange hands. And every time money exchanges hands, it's because of, most of the time, value creation. The exception to the rule is there's deception and coercion that happens there. But really, for the most part, it's because someone offered a service or a good, they offered value, they solved the problem, right? They really took care of someone in some way. And so money was just the receipt. And it's like going to the grocery store and vilifying the receipt. I don't like this receipt, but it was the goods and services, right? And if the goods and services are really about how do I help someone, and then in exchange, do I value myself enough to feel worthy of the money they give me? A lot of people don't feel worthy of the money, so they push it away, or they spend it too quickly, or they don't have the courage to face it. And there's this whole story that money's complicated, so people just can excuse it away. But if we don't master money at some point in our life, then money is our master. But if you master it, then it becomes a really good servant. And that's the key.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. I think back my childhood, I was raised by mother and father. As far as I know, there was always money available, but the messaging was always, we're conserving. That was the big statement, is we're conserving money. And that statement was so prevalent in my childhood that my father, who was in the racehorsing business, we actually named one of the horses I'm conserving. So, right. So the message carried through my entire childhood into my adult life. And then that conservation had to be converted as a business owner into, how do I create value to charge for the services provided in a way that overcame that I'm conserving message. Really interesting. And I think we get those at a very young age and then have to figure out how to manipulate them in a better way.
Right, because scarcity comes from a place of isolation. It comes from a place of faulty information and a faulty philosophy. So you could have really hard workers that still end up bankrupt because of poor philosophy, because of scarcity. Because scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth. No luck or no saving or no discipline or no rate of return or no even financial advisor can save someone if they're stuck in scarcity, because scarcity finds a way to, either hoard the money and never find a way to utilize it or enjoy it, or it's that they're just always like blowing through it because, it's like they're afraid of it. I had these clients and they were hosting an event and I said, hey, why don't you go to the bank and get 150 grand in cash? I'm like, you'll have to go to a few different banks. You'll have to sign some papers. You'll probably be put on an FBI watch list. But the reality is, I want you to just put it in a briefcase in the foyer when people are in the waiting place before you let them into the room. And I just want you to put a camera on it and watch how people operate. There are people that went into the room. They didn't even know the money was there. They didn't even see it. There are other people that walked away from it and like were, what's going on here? And other people that were staring at it. It really conjured up this emotion that really was like a magnifying glass to their belief systems. And so what if the belief was money is just a useful tool and it's a byproduct of value creation, and that money actually follows value? So the more value you create, that's part of it. But it's not just the value you create, it's the value you're willing to receive, right? Mm-hmm. And if people aren't willing to receive, then that money doesn't come their way. If they think it's hard or difficult or wrong or bad. I mean, think about this weird juxtaposition. I want more money, but it's the root of all evil. Like, that's going to leave someone really stuck, right? I wrote this money rap and I used like all these different terms for money. It's 5.5 minutes. And it was like all these statements, and they're all kind of like negative statements, money makes the world go around. Money, time is money. There's like all these belief statements that people have that are quite limited. That again, they're chasing the receipt instead of understanding the value. And the first place we have to understand value is in ourselves. Like, what value can we create? And then understand that value is perspective. So typically, if we don't value ourselves, we'll discount what we're worth, and other people will gladly pay the discounted amount because there's too many people stuck in this, what I call the consumer condition, people that look to take more than they give. And so these are people that are so transactional, they'll waste hours trying to save money instead of produce more value. And that's a very limited, finite game. Like, there's only so much you can save by shopping on Black Friday. There's only so much you can save by not, investing in yourself. And so, yes, you might end up with plenty of money in a bank account, but be really miserable. That's like the book, The Millionaire Next Door. It's really a book of how to be miserable and have millions, because there's only like 32% of millionaires these days that even feel wealthy. And part of it's because, again, this money mindset. It's a lot about this scarcity mindset. So yeah, you might be a millionaire on paper, but a pauper in life. And the other thing is, some people think if they're just going to have more money, it would solve all their problems. But money is like, we build the skill of how to create value. And the more value that we can create, the more we understand things, the more money we can keep. Because making money and keeping money are kind of two different skill sets, right? And I think some people just have a notion of, I'll just make more. But then one month happens where maybe they have a health challenge, or they have a family issue, or whatever it might be. And now they don't have kind of a place or a reservoir or a place where it's creating consistent cash flow. And now they feel really stressed and they're stuck. And the way that we're taught money is really problematic in that it's all about one day, someday. It's all about save, scrimp, delay, defer, cut out, eliminate, and then just wait for 30 years. And then one day, someday, you can finally retire when you're too damn old to enjoy the money in the first place. And so we create these really bad habits of like deferring to the future, never enjoying the present. And this is why I'm really frustrated with financial planning, is because I think that wealth is our ability to be present and in the moment. And it's our ability to be fulfilled and happy. And if everything we've taught about money is, if you want to be fulfilled and happy, you have to sacrifice today so you can have a lump sum of money in the future and finally live the life you enjoy when you're old. And I just don't believe that that's a real good path to wealth.
And there's a lot of people out there preaching that, right? Work so hard today so that you can live like nobody else in the future, right? That's
a statement I heard when I was 19 years old, told my dad that, and he goes, "Well, that's dumb." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you can never buy back the memories you never have."
Right. So how do we help people out there because I know what people are saying, right? Well, okay, but I can't blow through all the money that I have because then I have no money and there's kids to pay for and retirement. So how do we get people to wrap their heads around a concept that we don't live in scarcity, but we also don't blow through all our cash and have nothing left at the end of the day?
So instead of budgeting, you move to mindful cash management. Here's the differences. Budgeting is about what you can save and eliminate and cut out, and it creates parameters that say, I only have this for this, this for this, and it requires a lot of discipline and a lot of energy. I would say, on the other hand, mindful cash management would say, let's pay yourself first. So you set up a separate bank account, and every time you get paid, a percentage automatically goes into this separate bank account. I call that bank account your peace of mind fund. That's the first. So it's a wealth capture system. So you're setting money aside. Now, how do we find the money to set aside? Well, there's 4 I's, and this is like US based with the first I, but it could be whatever your tax, system is, wherever you live, but it's IRS. A lot of people tip the government, especially a business owner. Like if you're a business owner, depending on the year and the law changes, it's somewhere between 93 to 98% of people overpay their taxes. So this can be found money that can help you build your peace of mind fund. The second I is interest. Most people don't have the right credit score. And if they get above a 760, they get better interest rates. If they have the right cash flow reporting, they get better interest rates. If they have good connections to the right types of banks, certain banks lend better for one thing versus another. And then having collateral, like just a lot of people just pay far too much in interest because they either haven't restructured their loans properly, renegotiated the interest rates to be the most competitive and best situation because they have never been taught that, or even reallocate funds. I see people all the time. Like I was with my buddy on Saturday, and I remember one time he was complaining about his 6.5% loan. It was a business line of credit. And I was like, well, why don't you just cash out your CD that's earning 3 at the time? He's like, well, there's a penalty. I'm like, let's find out what the penalty is. He would forfeit 3 months interest if he cashed it out early. Well, guess what? He's going to make up for that in 45 days and then be ahead every day forward because he would be saving more interest than he was earning. That's called reallocation. The third I is investments. There's a lot of hidden fees, and these fees are substantial. Most people think, well, they're small fees, but those fees add up and they're exponential, because if there's compound interest, there's also compounding costs. So if they just have the eyes to see, like a financial detective of sorts that says, okay, well, here's things that aren't performing for you, this 12B1 fee, this expense ratio, this admin and legal fee, like we just start to add that up. It might be 1%, it might be 2%. I've seen it as high as 5% for people. The difference between 5% over 30 years is exponential. It might be the difference between having 200 grand in your account or 2 million in your account. It's that big of a problem. And then the last I is insurance. A lot of people just have duplicate coverages, improper structure, and that inefficient design means they're giving more money to institutions that's rightfully theirs. So we simply set money aside automatically off the top, live off the rest. If you're spending more than you make, then you have to go listen to the people that tell you have to budget. But if you just pay yourself first and live off what's left over, then you plug the leaks. It's going to help you to start building cash. And once you have 6 months liquidity, once you got 6 months in cash, then you start to deliberately invest that money in ways that create cash flow instead of accumulate. Because here's my fundamental belief. Don't wait for 30 years to be, in a retired situation. Create financial independence in 10 years or less by plugging financial leaks and becoming a cash flow investor. It's not a 30-year proposition. It's 10 years or less. I had a chiropractor get there in 3 years. I've had other people get there in less, but those guys were also like the ones with the biggest practices that are just like relentless. And I'm like, they're workhorses. I couldn't believe, but even if you're deep in debt, you can get there in 7 years. You just have to first say, I'm willing to do the work. It's like, how many people that don't proactively take care of their health spend way more time taking care of their health when they're forced to take care of it later on in life. Right. So you just have to first stop with the BS of, I don't have the time or I don't have the knowledge. Guess what? You can find an hour to 2 a week, because what you're going to do is end up with a lot more money, a lot more wealth, and you just have to increase your financial knowledge. And this is the good news. Most people think they need to know so much about finance that's irrelevant and unnecessary. You need to know the foundational pieces. How do you transfer risk? How do you create savings? How do you use this mindful cash management? And then you only have to get good at a few investment options. Like, number one, I call it investor DNA. Like, what are your values? What is important to you? What are your competencies? Where do you have a skill set? I've had a lot of people in the health space where I'm like, stop investing in these things you know nothing about and look into the space that you're really intelligent with. And then you can make more informed decisions. So you actually focus instead of diversify. You create cash flow instead of accumulate. You set money aside automatically and you plug the financial leaks. And that's the framework that's going to get you a lot further along, a whole lot faster, and most importantly, a whole lot safer.
So you make it sound so simple. Why is everybody so scared to do this?
We've been lied to. We've been told it's too complicated. We've got these Ivy League educated people on Wall Street. They know so much more than you. Just trust them. I mean, shit, I wouldn't trust Wall Street with about anything, right? I wouldn't get on Wall Street Airlines. No way. Wouldn't take my kids to Wall Street daycare. Nope. They'd be like, oh, sorry, we lost 4% of your son, but I think it's just toes, right? But it's because we've been taught to abdicate responsibility. We've taught that it's too complicated. And it's been an effort with marketing dollars in the tune of billions of dollars to convince us that. So we go, I guess I just have to do this. It's like the people that just buy health insurance and then they just do what the health insurance says. Guess what? That's not health insurance. It's sick pay. It's not about proactively keeping you healthy. It's about emergency care. It's about you've now got an issue because it went unaddressed. The same thing happens with our finances. I call it hard easy versus easy hard. It's easy not to address your finances now, and it gets harder every single year. It's another year's gone by, you haven't developed the skill sets. You keep overpaying on your taxes. And guess what? If you're just willing to spend a few hours a year, you could save so much money on taxes. I could just go through so many chiropractors I've worked with that we just plugged financially. Because I had people say, I'm so dialed in with my finances, there's nothing you'll find. And we found $1,200 a month. There's other people like, yeah, I know that I'm overpaying and I know that I don't have the right things. And it's like $5,900 a month that we find. It's just like, it's rare to find someone that owns a business that doesn't have money slipping through the cracks, but it takes courage to face your finances. And because it's one of these industries where there's not a lot of trust, there's like, I've seen the data with deep reports saying that like 80% of people don't trust their financial advisor. Well, guess what? It's because they're paid on commission, or they're taking a fee, whether they make you money or not. And they're only talking about one little fraction of what you're doing. It's kind of like the allopathic medicine system, right? It's like ENT deals with your ears, nose, and throat. You've got the, it's like, it's not, the body's so comprehensive and working together that if you just look at the symptom, then you miss the whole thing. But look, I didn't know anything about health, really. And when my son was diagnosed with auditory processing disorder and was really struggling, we just said, all right, we're going to start reading books. We're going to start seeing different people. And by the way, it was chiropractors that solved it for us. Not the one, they weren't the ones that actually did the majority of the work that helped him, but they made the connections to other practitioners. Like, we took him to this thing called Brain Camp, and Brain Camp transformed his life. And then, Mind's Eye Institute. But it was all like, I took him to chiropractors to say, all right, I don't know exactly what to do. I mean, adjustments could help, but I think that there's some other things going on. Let me figure it out. And like, I love that cooperative nature. And I think that in finance, too many people are competitive and not cooperative. So we have different advice coming from different places, and people need kind of like a point person that can help them navigate that. And they just need to give up this story of it's too hard. I mean,
yeah, and I think not only it's too hard, but I think also too that it's admitting inefficiencies, right? As a business owner, I'm an expert. I run a phenomenal business, but it doesn't mean you don't run a phenomenal business. It just means there could be improvements, right? And I think we have to sit back and own the fact that it's okay to recognize that we don't do everything perfectly, including our finances.
And I'm in finance and I haven't done it perfectly. I've made mistakes along the way. I invested in things that didn't work out. It was part of the learning process. The difference between me and others is I admitted to those mistakes and said, what could I learn from this? And what would I do differently, instead of just justifying that? Like, oh, you're in it for the long haul, or the market's on sale. All these kind of notions that we're told, I think erroneously, that again, have us not take responsibility. But you just have to be resourceful enough to say, what do you really want? And are you willing to go for it? We figured it out with my son. We didn't know what to do at the beginning. We asked questions. We talked to people. They made connections. We read books. Like, we just figured it out. And some things worked and some things didn't. But the thing is, he got the result. He's just 100%. He's doing fantastic. And that's the key. So the same thing with our finances. You don't have to know all the answers. You have to have the courage to face it. And you have to just start doing some of the work.
I love it. I want to go back to this concept of saving. And I don't mean saving like you shove money under a mattress, but like, I've saved money because I bought 2 instead of 1, or I'm saving because it's on sale. And where is, all of those misconceptions? I laugh. My son, who's graduating high school, I think from the age of 5, used to always say, Mom, why are you buying 2 of those just because you get a bigger discount? They're just suckering you into getting more, and you're actually still spending more money, right? When you didn't need it. It was like he got it at a really young age. And I think a lot of us fall into that trap. How much of that out there is really hurting all of us financially?
Well, it's an epidemic. I mean, look at, like, if I went to, there's a place close to where I live called City Creek, and it's just a beautiful mall with all these great stores. And I just had my son with me. I'm like, let's just take a picture at every single sale that it's saying on the door. I'm like, 50% off this weekend only. I'm like, guess what? If we come back in a week, there's another sale. It's that psychological thing of like getting us to think, oh, this is a deal. Not actually looking at value-based spending. Value-based spending says, well, do I value it? Is it what I really want? And part of that is knowing what you don't care about and just saying, I'm never going to really spend money on these things because they don't move the needle for me. And then picking some things where you're like, this really matters to me and I really feel wealthy with it. Like, I had this really famous functional medicine guy that he just lived like a pauper, but he was worth a ton of money. And I said, look, here's the deal. You're doing great with everything but life's enjoyment, which that seems like that would be nice. Like, you're doing so many great things with your money. You're helping other people, but you're not helping yourself. And we came up with this really cool strategy. It wasn't even that cool. It was just really easy, but he didn't know about it. And it was a 6-figure a month savings for him of actual cash in his pocket. And I said, I'm only going to tell you about the strategy if you'll take 10% of the savings and move it to another account. We're going to call it your Living Wealthy account. And that Living Wealthy account means every quarter you have to spend the money on that on you. It's not for charity. It's not for anything else. He was like, I don't know what I would spend it on. I'm like, are you wanting suggestions? And he said, sure. So I got him a personal shopper at Nordstrom. And the first month he went and got new clothes. And then he put a Nest system in his house. He put a sound system in his house. He just started, and he was like a little kid, so excited because all along he'd never had the permission to just have value-based spending. I'm like, that's your guilt-free spending account. Not what other people tell you is valuable, just what you think is valuable. So you enjoy the process along the way. So you could build more of a life that you love. And it was a game changer for him. You know, it was like that simple thing is if we have a living wealthy account and we put a small amount of money in there or a small percentage of money and, you know, go all in on those things that are from that account, because I like to take 15% of my gross income and automatically set it to the wealth capture account or the peace of mind account.
Okay.
And I like to take 3% that goes to the living wealthy account. Living wealthy account might be lay down seats when we travel. It might be, upgraded restaurants. It might be buying nice clothes, like whatever it is. It's just like, okay, that's guilt-free spending because we already did the right things for ourselves financially. This is how we get to enjoy our wealth along the way. And Benjamin Franklin said, wealth isn't the man that has it, but the man that lives it. And he has a pretty storied past of, having a good time. And so why not have a good time along the way? I mean, reckless spending would be problematic. Borrowing to consume, spending money you don't have, or spending optimism, having a good month and then spending like it was going to be only better the next month, but maybe it isn't because something changes. And so that pay yourself first kind of philosophy is really important, essential. It's a foundational step.
What's your mindset on borrowing for certain things? So, I think, okay, I've got a daughter. She's 23. She's got her first grown-up job, right? She's trying to amass some accumulation. When is it okay, in your opinion, to make the car payment for the car or the mortgage for the house or to start a bit? What are the things that are okay to incur that debt for, in your opinion, as you're trying to grow versus buying things that don't do that and are just a waste?
So the second part of mindful cash management is what I call differentiating expenses. So the first type of expense is a destructive expense. Just get rid of those, right? Paying for things you're not utilizing, borrowing to consume. You borrowed for a trip, you come home, you still owe it on the credit card, but you don't have an asset. Okay. Those are pretty simple, but sometimes people just, people use apps like Rocket Money and stuff like that, and it shows them like, hey, are you actually utilizing what you're spending on every month? I mean, it'll show like maybe they're paying for apps they haven't used in years or something like that. So that's basic. The second is lifestyle expenses, and this is what you're talking about. So my rule for lifestyle expenses, with the exception of a car and a home, is never borrow to consume. Okay. So could it be okay to borrow for a mortgage or borrow for a car? Absolutely. Now, cars are a depreciating asset. So in most cases, right? Some people know how to buy these exotic cars and sell them for more, but for the most part, but at the same time, not having a car could be one of the most inconvenient things, especially depending on where someone lives. And so it's more about how do they make sure it's within their means and that the payment isn't something that becomes problematic. So even with a home, that becomes increasingly difficult in a high interest rate environment. It was kind of easy to do pre-2022 before the market kind of ran up and the interest rates then later on went up. So I'm okay with borrowing for those things within reason. I've had loans on cars before. I have a mortgage where I'm sitting right now, but it's 2.75%. I can earn way more than that with safety. But there's other people that if they have a mortgage, they can't sleep at night. It just disrupts their life so badly, and then they pause everything else in their life to just pay off this mortgage. Okay, they got to really think, like, is the home worth it? First off, because I'm not anti-renting. My wife is like, well, I don't want to rent a place, and I like buying something I get to decorate. So I'm like, cool. It's a lifestyle choice for us. When I bought my first home, second home, because I bought one when I was 19 and I rented it out to roommates and stuff in college. But then the next one we bought, the price of the home was less than what I made in a year. That's not available for everybody, right? I had early income. So what you have to really look at is it's not just the mortgage, it's also the property taxes, it's also the insurance, it's also water softeners, water heaters, furniture. And so it's about looking at what's really going to work for you when you consider those other expenses. And so I'd say whatever your mortgage payment is, you got to look at double that in the first year for all the things that usually go along with it. So it might just mean if you borrow, you really should be looking for, like, if someone's buying a first home, like, learn how to be a little bit of a real estate investor. Look for how to find a good deal. Look for a place where someone might be distressed. Look for a place where someone already has a mortgage, but they're going to move, and that mortgage is at 2%, and they can turn the loan over to you, and you do seller financing. It's where it's worth being a little bit creative. It's just that some people live beyond their means because they're trying to prove something or be something that they're not. And so be willing to rent. Look at what those payments are and then double them, considering all the additional expenses for upkeep. I mean, when we bought our first home, we had to put in a yard. There wasn't even a mailbox. We had to put in garage door openers. The water softener, we ended up buying that the guy came and sold. So I did a whole video on YouTube that was just on those aspects because it's what most people don't think about. But they could just go to ChatGPT and they could simply say, what are all the additional expenses when I'm buying a home that I should consider? And, what would that look like as far as my cash flow? And so I'm more like, what if you started to create some cash flow from assets first and then bought a home second? Most people buy the home, now they have to make the payments, and now there's not money left over to start creating freedom and fitness and that kind of stuff with them financially.
Right. Now, how do you make this funny? Because you do comedy about money too, right? So like all of this is really serious and deep, right? Because I'm sure like I'm even thinking, okay, what could I be doing better in my life? But yet you also take this and turn it into humor. How does that help?
Well, I think that when we laugh, it's easier to learn. We remember 3 times more when we laugh or when we're scared. So I'll let the news scare the shit out of people and I'll just make them laugh, right? So,
Okay.
I mean, the opening line of my comedy special was money. Whoever thought 6 inches could be so destructive? No girl I ever dated, So I just tell these jokes. I talk about the difference between being frugal and being cheap. Frugal is what they say to your face. Cheap's behind your back. I talk about all these notions and beliefs that we have around finance and just dissected it and started making fun of it. I'm like, it's like, think about all the dumb things we've done with money. I'm like, I've done dumb things with money. Remember Jabot jeans or
Yes.
overalls,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I once bought Extends, a dick pill. Like, that's stupid, right? Like, so you just make fun of it. And then all of a sudden I get to some levity and share some things like, hey, we expect money to do things it was never intended to do. Hey, money, make me happy, right? And then, so I can just have those little notes where it gets people to question. I make fun of 401ks. I make fun of, so that people start going, oh yeah, maybe that isn't the best idea. And if they laugh, it just resets the energy and it's more fun for me too.
That's great. Being raised Jewish, there's a very bad connotation about Jewish people being cheap. And my joke is look, we'll spend $1 million on a boat, but we better believe it was 2 million first and you gave us 50% off, so we'll always write the check, but we want a deal to write the check. We're never paying retail ever, know? So everybody's got their thing. You know what? I love this. I think it's really great. Before we take a commercial break, just to kind of wrap up, and I know there's a million things we probably didn't even get to, but can you give me like 2 things for our listeners to start doing to help and 2 things to stop doing that will help them for their financial health?
All right. The things to start doing would be getting your data, like getting your information and looking at it, especially for taxes. Like most people, they wait till the next year and they go, okay, what can I do to save taxes from the previous year? And they're talking to their accounting team during the brain dead season. January through April, they're inundated. But if you just start meeting with them once a quarter, you can start to actually implement strategies that permanently save tax, not just delay tax. So I would stop delaying tax. A lot of people put their money in a plan saying, oh, it's going to defer taxes and that's the savings. It's not savings because not paying tax and delaying it are 2 very different things. One says you don't have to right now. The other one, says you don't ever have to. And so, So I wouldn't just get into the delaying of tax. I think that's problematic. I would get into the saving of tax and I would meet with I would just get data. There's like Puzzle.io is a AI accounting software that basically will be your bookkeeper so you can look at your information. So start looking at it weekly and stop ignoring it. So those are 2 and 2 right there.
Great. I love it. All right. We're going to take a quick break. I want to listen to our sponsors because they're super important. And then we're going to come back, Garrett. I'm going to just ask you some random rapid fire questions. You up for that?
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back. Everybody sit tight. The Positively Altered Podcast. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered Podcast. stop, hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. Welcome back and thanks for taking a break and joining us again. We are with Garrett Gunderson. We've been talking all things money and health. And now we're going to switch gears. Garrett, I'm going to throw some questions at you. I'm just curious what you're going to say. You ready?
Me too. I'm curious what I'm going to say.
All right. We will see. All right. If you could change the color of the ocean to something other than the bluish green color that it is, what color would you pick?
I want like the Amalfi coast. No, I want the like on the other side of Italy where it's just like clear that you can almost see to the bottom, right? Just that clean, crisp, like Lake Tahoe, like where it's just like so beautiful, like a mirror. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. If you could pick only one mode of transportation for the rest of your life to get where you need to get, what would you pick?
A helicopter. But I want the one with like multiple engines and, so if one goes out, I'm still good.
So do you want the one too with have you seen those? I don't know if helicopters do it. They have the planes now with the parachutes. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I've seen those. Like the Cirrus, I think, has a parachute.
So I think, I'd be in on the helicopter as long as the parachute is in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. My daughter actually flies airplanes, and I've been in some of these little airplanes that look like they could go down by just blowing on them the wrong way. So,
I was in one of those a couple of years ago because I was speaking at an event and they chartered one of those to get me home. And I was with two other speakers and they're like, "You look really nervous." And I was just pushing the window and it had all this flex. I'm like, that's why it feels like I'm a piece of plastic. I did get to fly a helicopter under supervision once, and there's a lot that could go wrong in a helicopter. There's a lot of different movements, and I was just trying to hover and all that kind of stuff, and then we didn't get to go the full place because of wind. So it just sounds like it would be fun to have a helicopter if someone else was flying it, probably.
All right. Well, you're very brave for picking that only mode of transportation. All right. What is not a breakfast food that should be?
Man, steak's a breakfast food because of steak and eggs.
It is.
Right? That should be a breakfast food. Damn, I feel like breakfast gets, I don't know. Everything I'm thinking of like is I pretty much eat for breakfast because I don't have a normal breakfast.
What's a normal breakfast? Well, what's your breakfast?
My breakfast is papaya in oatmeal with eggs. I do like eggs, or sometimes I'll do a protein drink. I try to get protein right away. And then, every now and again, I'll have kiwi instead of papaya.
Okay, I still think that's considered breakfast foods.
Yeah,
though.
it's all pretty much breakfast foods.
All
but
right,
if I'm at a restaurant, I'm doing steak and eggs,
All right, still breakfast food, but that's okay. We'll scrap that question. We'll scrap that. Okay, if you could domesticate any animal on the planet, what would you have as a house pet?
Can be domestic. I'll be safe with this animal.
Yes, domesticate any animal on the planet. They will not eat you, bite you, attack you. Just curl up in your lap and cuddle.
And like the ones I started thinking about, I'm like, no, those would stink and be so messy. Like a bear, if you domesticate, but it would be so messy, right? Like just eat everything, claw everything, a wolf, but those things are scary as shit. So it really need to be domesticated.
Well, again, we're living in a fantasy world here in this rapid fire question piece. It's not realistic.
So I could have a unicorn then, since those aren't real.
Again, you can answer this any way you want, Garrett. This is your 2 minutes of creativity. So, I don't judge. I just ask. Lastly, what is your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
I like just not knowing where it's going to go and having a conversation and relating health to wealth. Like, because I just think, like imagine what would happen if people took responsibility for their health. We just have a much better planet, and same thing with their wealth. Like, I think it's just as complicated until you figure it out to take care of health. It seems overwhelming, but then once I figured it, like once I knew what to eat and I have a plan and I, know what workouts I'm doing and, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, if I drink enough water, get enough, it's like, it actually feels so easy once you're there. But on the path there, I used to always just overeat because I was eating shitty food at night, right? Or not eating enough during the day or not like that kind of stuff. So I like the conversation of health and wealth.
I love it. All right. How does everybody get a hold of your books? Give us your favorites. They're all the favorites, right? But give us your favorites. How do we find them? How do we follow you? How do we work with you? We want to improve our financial outlook. So where do we go?
I'll hook people up with my favorite 3 audiobooks if they just DM me on Instagram, Garrett B. Gunderson. on Instagram. And it's What Would the Rockefellers Do, which is my biggest selling book, and it makes legacy available and accessible. Killing Sacred Cows, the OG that hit New York Times. I did an updated version, added the audiobook. I added my entire comedy special throughout it, so that after like I teach something, then there's comedy on that topic. And then Money Unmasked, my newest book, which I think is like must read for anyone that wants to get out of scarcity.
I love it. All right. So everybody check out Garrett Gunderson.
Dr. Cindy, so we know where you're coming from. Otherwise, my team might be like, people are asking for your audiobooks for free. I'm like, no, I told Dr. Cindy's crew that they could have the audiobooks for free.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll make sure that we get a link for everybody to check out. If you have listened to the podcast, please make sure you share it with your friends as well, because it's really important information we've got to start to get out. If you want to learn a little bit more about what's going on in my community, please check us out at drscindyspeaks.com or shoot us an email at hello@drscindyspeaks. Please make sure you check out my book called Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag. Garrett, it has been an absolute pleasure. One of my favorite things about the podcast today is not only just chatting with you, but really you gave me some good take-home things to also think about, because I'm never done learning and growing and figuring out my financial health as well. So thank you for those gifts today in sharing a few moments with us. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Anytime. All right, everybody. I hope you all have learned something today and that this podcast has left you positively altered.